What's up, people? You are listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio on 96.9 FM and 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia. I'm Mo, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, George and Glenn. What's going on, fellas?
Nothing much, man. NCAA basketball, the Washington Commanders, opening day of baseball.
Yes,
Life is
sir.
good right now. Orioles got a big win, so, hey, 161 more to go.
Well, we got 27
The
more
only
days
thing
to the
I'm taking a
draft.
break. This is the only thing I'm taking a break from March Madness for is this show. That's
It
the only
is.
thing. It's all basketball for me this month, except for this show right here.
Man, 27 days to the draft. But listeners out there, please subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iHeart Radio, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Just search All Burgundy and Gold, everything. Also, tweet us at ABG_everything with 3 R's and hit us up on IG and TikTok at ABG_everything. Make sure y'all subscribe to our All Burgundy and Gold Everything YouTube channel as well. If you're feeling generous and you're following us, please hit us up on the super chat on YouTube, and we'll definitely prioritize your comments. If you're streaming, we're streaming live right now on the Urban Sports Scene X account. Glenn, it's time for the pregame.
Yo, we're going to talk about if Washington has any more new additions they added to the team. We're going to talk about why Hendrickson, all right, Trey Hendrickson, it maybe or maybe not be a good fit for Washington Commanders. We're going to talk about the cap space and if Washington able to pull this off, does he fit the key team chemistry? Also, we're at the very end. We're going to give you our verdict, whether it's a yes or no. Hey, so let's start it here. Let's start with Trey Hendrickson. We'll talk about the new additions a little bit later. Hey, the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Today mentioned that they try to take the trade. They're not going to trade Trey Hendrickson. All right. They just a couple hours ago said they're not going to trade Trey Hendrickson. By the time we already figure out this, we're going to put this topic out there. But is he worth the $30 million, or at this time $31.5 million the Washington Commanders will have to spend for him? Is he worth it? And why should the Washington Commanders go after Trey Hendrickson? I got it. I know 17.5 sacks the last 2 years, big pass rusher, but he's 30 years old. Do you want to spend that type of money? George, I'll start with you.
No, and it's because he's going to turn 31 this December. So if I'm going to pay that kind of money for an edge, the guy I would have paid that kind of money for is Max Crosby, as you well know. You know, but anybody watched the show when we were talking about who should Washington trade for, Max Crosby was the answer for me, in part because he's 25. Now, I will say this. Trey Hendrickson sits out a year, that could lengthen his career, which is why I feel like that threat is a real one. And it not that'd be the worst thing for Trey Hendrickson to do, because you know what? The demand for what he does is not going to lessen in a year. And a year off, we've seen it with Adrian Peterson. We've seen it with other players. That can do a body real good. So I just want to put that out there, that I think his threats to sit out a year are real, and I think it might not be the worst thing for him. That said, if it's me, because remember, the other piece of this is you're going to have to trade for him probably after this draft. So you're talking about 2026. What are you going to give up? First and a third, whatever it's going to be. I'm just not willing to do it. I'm just not willing to do it. If he was 26 or 27, I would probably be more inclined to do it, but he's going to turn 31 this December. And you're talking about a 5-year deal, aren't you? 4-year deal at the minimum. So That's what you're talking about. So for that reason, I'm a no.
Mo, what you got?
Y'all crazy out y'all mind if y'all don't do it. Crazy. If you're going to capitalize on this Jaden Daniels window, which everybody wants to, right? Everybody wants to maximize this team before he becomes the first $300 million man in the NFL. Trey Hendrickson is the piece that this team, that's the biggest glaring hole right now. When it was Myles Garrett a couple of weeks ago before he signed his super mega deal, everybody was down for it. Myles Garrett turns 30 this year in the same December that Trey Hendrickson turns 31. He's 1 year younger. Yet in the last 2 years, he's 8 sacks more productive. Compared to the only benefit I'll give Max Crosby is that he's far younger, but Trey Hendrickson is almost a full season sacks ahead of Max Crosby's sack output the past 2 seasons. 17.5 is a hard number to come across. Like the record is 22, right? The record is 22.5. We see 20s, we see 18s, 17s. Like that's like 4 notches away. Trey Hendrickson also plays the run well, right? Which was a big detriment to this team, right? When I watch Trey Hendrickson, the name I'm gonna throw out there that most people probably would disagree with, but like I think he's this era's kind of player in terms of that, especially now at his height. Like I see like a 2024 version of like Michael Strahan. Remember how Michael Strahan used to play the run and the pass, and like he's stout, like his stature in itself, because he nothing about him ever seemed like physically imposing, right? But like he's just super dominant. He was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. The only thing that gives me pause for concern is now that the Commanders are under $30 million of total cap space. You got to save some of that for Terry's extension, right? You got to save some of that for the rookie class, right?
Yeah.
And any other knickknacks that come in. But it's not like his $30 million is going to come in and it's going to wipe out the whole bank, because they'll figure out a way to make the numbers spread across. Because it would have to be an extension, so he'll still be playing off his last year of his Cincinnati deal. They'll probably give him some upfront money to like they did with Myles Garrett and whatnot. But if Myles Garrett was plenty good enough, then why am I losing? I'm about to say Max Crosby. Then Trey Hendrickson should be plenty good, because he's proven it. He's AP first team, second in defensive player of the year voting. Like there's nobody like that on this Commanders team. It's a far drop off between him and the other DNs. If you could find a way, and I don't think it's going to take a draft pick from next year. Like I think it could, it would have to be the second round pick, but do you want to lose the middle of your entire draft, right? That's the only holdback. But if you can get him for a pick this year and a package, probably send somebody else away.
Yeah.
The Bengals can use.
They're not taking that guy. If that's what you're thinking, they're not taking it. And I want to add this. I don't see this deal getting done before the draft. I really don't, because I think both sides are dug in right now, and I don't think getting a pick this year or 2 picks this year or a pick next year and a pick this year and a pick next year, I don't think that's a big motivation for Cincinnati. Honestly, I'm not sure what Cincinnati's motivation is, because they don't.
You didn't ask should the deal get done. You asked should the Commanders do it.
Well,
absolutely.
I mean, I think it does change a little bit in the Commanders' favor if you do it after the draft. And I would say this too. I think if Cincinnati's going to do something, whether it's after the draft or before training camp, then don't they have to take an edge in round 1? Aren't we going to be looking at them taking some prime guy in round 1 or in round 2? Should we be kind of trying to read the tea leaves that way?
Yeah, I think you want to read the tea leaves, they'll take an edge. They'll take a defensive guy. I mean, you figure if you're Cincinnati has the offense locked up, right? You got Joe Barrows, you got T. Higgins, you still got Jamar Chase. Right, Jamar Chase, right? Right. So your offensive weapons are locked up there, right? Now your defensive guy, if you take this guy off of the defense, right, and you don't replace him with something sound, then Cincinnati won't have anything. We can figure. Mo went through the records, right? The guy had 45 tackles, right? 17.5 sacks, which led the league in all sacks, right? He was also all pro, right? Made the Pro Bowl yet again, 2 years in a row, 17.5 sacks, right? For a career, he's rocking 77 sacks. Has only been in the league for 7 years.
Come on, right? Now.
He's averaging 10 sacks.
11 sacks per season.
And we're not even talking about 2018. He didn't even play the whole year.
Yep.
Right. 18, he didn't play the whole year. So again, you take him based off the productivity. The thing is, how long can you get the productivity out of a 30-year-old, 31-year-old? And that's just the question. We try to say that, and it's not old, right? It's not old when you look at things, but it's in this league. Can that motor go for that long? because we know Washington hasn't had a pass rush, right? Washington ranked last this year in pass rush. Hadn't had a pass rush since, I hate to say it, since Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Can we be honest, right? I know people say, oh, Dante Fowler had 10 sacks. A lot of those came to Dante Fowler. It's not like he created those, right? Hendricks creates his stuff, right? Hendrickson creates his stuff. Dante Fowler couldn't stop the run. Mo mentioned it, right? Hendrickson is he can do both. Stop the run and go sack, right? He's not a one-trick pony. My thing is this. Do you want to tie up all that money for all those years, knowing that you have to sign Terry McLaurin again, knowing that those years that you made Jaden Daniels will become available, right? Or not available. Jaden Daniels, you got to pay the young fella, all right? So you got all this that's tied up in there, and I know the contract Cincinnati still has to pay if they make a trade. But who are you giving up if you're Washington, right? You don't want to keep giving up picks because your picks already gone from last. One of your picks already gone for next year against Larry Tunsil, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Cincinnati ain't going to want to take on big salary. Picks is what you got to give them because the only way they're going to build that defense is through the draft. They aren't going to bubkiss to spend in free agency the next several years with all the money they're paying on offense.
Let me tell you what I noticed. I noticed that this team signed a lot of D tackles this offseason.
Yes, they have.
I noticed that. So there's a very high-paid D tackle that can make his way to Cincinnati via trade. That's one player. You give up probably the fourth this year, right? Because you got the fourth back for the Laramie Tunsil trade. Probably give up a second next year. I think you got some action if you're willing to pay the fee. But Cincinnati being the team that the part in the equation that does not want to let go of him, they're going to find a way to make this happen, right? They put their stake in the ground already in their offense. 5 of their primary offensive players make up $150 million out of the $278 million cap for this year, right? That's Joe Burrow's influence, right? That's the influence of having one of those guys at quarterback. That's why I said, like, Trey Hendrickson could be affordable to the Commanders. He probably could be. But his contract would probably – you can't look at this like it's going to be a long-term deal, though, Glenn. It can't be like a 5-year extension, right? It's probably going to have to be like a 3-year extension.
Yeah, 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah, it got to be like up to the timetable in which you got to pay Jaden. But for now, while Jaden is still cheap, that's where you just flip-flopping who the cost is for, right? So if you can make the numbers work and you can stretch it and you can make it like what they call it, heavy signing bonus base, so it doesn't affect the cap over the course of the years. I think there's a way to figure that out, but you got to really want to do it. And like you said, do you really want to do that for a 30-year-old that's approaching 31? But what I see from this guy is he's improving every year. Like he's improving every year. 13 and a half, 14, then he gets hurt in a little bit and he only has 8, then it's 17 and 17. It's like he's making up for lost time, right? Like he's incredible. He's incredible. 6'4", 280 pounds, and he moves like that. Like that's the Michael Strahan linking that I was saying earlier. Like the stature is there, the game is there, the way that he plays football, pretty violent, right? Like Cincinnati has to do something. So I understand why they don't want to let him go. But if the Commanders could get him, if they can make a way, I thought that this trade would have been a lot more ideal prior to the Laramie Tunsil trade. But they clearly prioritize offense to protect the asset in Jaden Daniels. So for that reason, I don't think it's realistic that it will happen. But should they try? They absolutely should try.
Yeah, I think they definitely
by the
try.
way, Jeremy Lee.
I'm about to say, I'll get to the score, George. I'm about to get to the comments now.
Yeah, no, please do, because Jeremy Lee said something I completely agree with about young what the Commanders need, because I think he's correct.
Yeah, this one here too. I thought Jeremy thought mortgage the future in year 2 is foolish in my opinion. You don't.
How would they be mortgaging it though, Jeremy? What's the mortgage? I don't see them mortgaging the future for him.
Yeah, that's the comment I'm completely in agreement with.
Commanders need to build a good team. They need young, inexpensive draft picks. They already want They already went after individual talent like left tackle, wide receiver, 1D, one. One defensive end isn't going to back the defense, make the defense spectacular.
I think this is why I can't get with Commanders fans. When it was Myles Garrett, it was all good.
Well, I wasn't on that.
It was all good.
Yeah, some of them, but I wasn't on that Myles Garrett train anyway. But I was saying that Myles Garrett train was, you knew it was going to be expensive. You knew that Myles Garrett train was going to be in my light. He was talking to stay. He wanted to up the number. He wanted to up the number from Cincinnati. I mean, from Cleveland.
From Cleveland, right?
He didn't really want to leave.
But Commanders fans swallowed. They ate that story up.
Yeah, I wasn't on that one.
They ate
you're
that
right,
story
though.
up. So if you was going to do it for Myles Garrett, so that all you're telling me is that Myles Garrett is just a sexier name than Trey Hendrickson, but Trey Hendrickson is more productive.
But it's begin. They hadn't made these other deals yet. That does change things. You know, that we were talking about Myles Garrett before we knew Debo was going to be traded here, even though that was kind of starting to gin up a little bit. We certainly had no idea Laramie Tunsil was going to be here.
That's fair.
And you know, granted, Debo's only a big salary for 1 year as of now.
Because they
Laramie
guaranteed the
Tunsil,
money.
we'll see. What?
They doubled down and guaranteed the money.
They did, but it's only for 1 year. There's very few salaries nobody can swallow if it's only 1 year. It's when you get to multiple years that it becomes a problem. I think Laramie Tunsil's got 2 years left on his deal. Does that sound right?
Uh-huh.
That's going to have to be restructured because I doubt he's going to play for $21 million, right?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think we're going to see that probably right before camp is what I would suspect. I think that you're absolutely right about that. So I think that's part of the context of this too, is that we were talking about Myles Garrett and all hopped up on that because Myles Garrett had not reversed himself and made himself kind of look silly with all his writing this letter and all this stuff. And B, I think we thought we were in, but I think we were also scared that Philadelphia was too.
Yeah.
And I will say part of that was driven by Jesus Christ, we cannot let Philadelphia get this guy, or we're all
screwed.
Yep.
Yeah, screwed. Hey, Paul got a call. Paul said this, man. Mo, you talk about picks in earlier. Paul says this. What's up, Paul? Paul said 94 and some picks.
Listen, Mo, and you know, and I don't blame you for feeling that way. I just can't see the cheapskate Bengals taking on a salary of any kind.
Hey, so I got a question to ask you guys, man. Would this be a Dan Snyder-like move if you went after this guy, right? This regime has not done this, right? Would this be like a Dan Snyder type-ish move that we criticize Dan Snyder about for years?
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. So in that,
yes,
with that question, then it absolutely behooves the team to stay away from Trey Hendrickson, right? Because you don't want any kind of semblance to what that used to happen here. Like the team has been building, and you want to keep the team sustained. You want to have sustained success over the course of the time, right? So you're going to have to hit on the first round pick. You're going to have to hit. You're going to have to crush it. Like you cannot put out the DMs that are there right now and expect them to generate pressure, because the interior pass rush does not generate pressure, right? And because the interior pass rush doesn't generate pressure, you have a lot of average guys at the DNs. You know, not to be disrespectful to anybody. Like Wise is probably the best DN on them. Why? No, Armstrong, Dorrance is like a 6 to 7 8
last year.
Yeah, Dorrance is I think Dorrance's career high is about 8 sacks, probably somewhere in there, right? Dorrance, Armstrong. So like, and you put Wise on the other. I think Wise is going to be the one that wins that spot if it remains how it is right now on the outside. But he had potential a couple of years ago under Bill Belichick. And then that has since dwindled. He is stout against the run because he is a bigger body, right? So that does help that a little bit. But, like, you need to get to the quarterback. And right now there's not a person on the roster that we can legitimately say you can just pin their ears back and they can get to the quarterback at a successful rate. So that's why this is important. Like, they have to hit on this pick.
They do. And Carl says this, man.
100%.
Shout out, Carl. Look at the team. They just won the Super Bowl. Balance on both sides of the ball in a great run game. Continue building around JD5, especially two bookends, O tackle to get him a running back that can create. Yeah, you can
You'd
do
have loved
that.
it, Glen.
But you
Pro
can't outscore
football.
people.
Glenn, you would have loved it. Pro Football Network mocked Trayvon Henderson to Washington in round 1. I know you'd love that. I know you'd love it.
I'm telling you, man. Look, defensively, we do need to stop the run, right? There's no doubt. This team sucked at the run. This team was the end of the run. You have to see a Saquon Barkley twice next year, right? You have to see you. Let's be honest, and that's the team to beat. You have to be able to stop the run. Some other teams that we play in next year, I have teams that can run. They're running football, right? Have some good running backs. So you're not playing I'm not saying the schedule this year was a cupcake, but you're not playing the schedule you played this year. Next year, you're playing some teams that you're going to have to be able to stop the run legitimately, right? So this team has to be able to find a defensive end. Whether I just think the price tag is a lot of money, where you could got some guys and not only the price tag, does he fit with the culture, right? Next point, does he fit with the culture that's the Washington that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters is trying to build? Will he fit in with the culture right now?
Well, I don't think that question is something that arises with Trey Hendrickson. When he was in New Orleans and he was up and coming, it was nothing but high praise for him. Like New Orleans just couldn't afford him after he had one of those seasons, and it was time to pay up. He's come to Cincinnati. We've never heard a negative story about him. He was the only player on a losing defense last year, and you've never heard anything about him. He is a workman. He is a workman. We talked about his 77 sacks in 7 years, and it's really like 5 big number years, right? His last 5 years, he's gone through the ceiling. Like that's what you get out of him. He wasn't no big time recruit coming out. He wasn't a big time player coming out of college either, coming out of Florida Atlantic. Like he had to get everything out the mud, right? Everything. He played on the other side of Cam Jordan in New Orleans, and he showed improved. And then he took his talents to Cincinnati, where he was the focal point of the pass rush, and it's led to an All-Pro. It's led to 35 sacks in 2 years, right? So, like, fitting into the culture, I think he's definitely a culture fit. I think he'll definitely be a culture fit, but it's the money. It really is the money. It really is the money and the assets you're going to have to give up. And I think the Commanders have made so many moves with their picks that they've priced themselves out of the Trey Hendrickson sweepstakes if we're going to be legitimately considering this as pundits about the team. You know what I mean?
Hey, George, I see you got something to say. Go ahead, George.
I want to add on to Mo's point because I completely agree with everything he said about the culture fit and about Hendrickson, and just add this. New Orleans, you weren't going to get a lot of help on defense because they were paying big money on the other side of the ball and they were in cap hell and all that. Then he goes to Cincinnati. You got the cheapskatest owners in the league just about who don't treat their players very well until they have to.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to this organization with Josh Harris, Adam Peters, that front office, this coaching staff, we know how good Dan Quinn, Joe Witt, and that whole coaching staff is at connecting with players. I don't think culture would be an issue at all with Trey Hendrickson. I think he would be kissing the ground to play here in Washington, given his prior experiences.
And like if you look at this is the first time we've ever heard any rumblings of him, right? And it's only because this is probably his last major paycheck.
Yeah.
Right. And rightfully so. You had guys like when Chris Jones sat out the first game of the season after a championship over some money. If I'm Trey Hendrickson, I was absolutely not playing for the Cincinnati Bengals. I will sit.
That's what Carl said. Carl said KC won with Chris Jones, took over the game before a playoff and Super Bowl. Philly just won the Super Bowl with D-line taking over the game. We all know the old adage, defense wins championships. They need pass rushers.
They need a guy. They need a guy that can absolutely do it, right? And he's the best one on the market. There's nobody in the draft. Probably Abdul Carter, maybe, if you know what I mean. But like he's nowhere going to be. He's not going to be nowhere close to being selected, right? But like outside
James
of that,
Pierce
like
Jr. James Pierce Jr. is not bad.
He's not bad, but he's also not. He didn't show great in college. He's not like. If it wasn't for his 40 time, like he'd be in the middle. He'd be in the middle of the pack. That 40 time is what got a lot of people enamored, right?
And and the Nigerian from Boston College. What's his name?
For sure. What's his name?
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
Donovan something. Y'all,
something.
Yeah, Donovan
And
Ezine.
that's why I'm saying I'm not saying they're not good players in the draft. I just like nobody's coming in and getting 17 sacks within their first 2 years in the league.
Oh,
I tell you that. They
I'll
may
tell you
not get 17 sacks combined. You want them
that.
to, but you know what I mean?
Right.
But like that's those are big numbers. Like 17 and a half one time, okay, that's fluke. 17 and a half 2 years in a row.
That's
And
yo,
think about
yo.
this. The thing that makes his 17 and a half this past year, so impressive, Cincinnati was bad. So that means they were losing games. So that means that teams were running the football
Yeah.
against Cincinnati to run the clock out. He still got 17 and a half sacks.
Yeah.
That's impressive because typically you get them high sack numbers when you're winning the game and you get to pin your ears back and go after the other quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes his 17 and a half so much more impressive to me than anybody else has had 17 and a half that I've seen in recent years. But
Jeremy said this. We'll get to the chat real quick. He said, here's my stance. We need a defense that can cover and pressure the quarterback from multiple spots. Having one D end that can get sacks on a subpar defense isn't impactful, just like the Bengals defense. That goes to your point. Goes to your point you was just talking about, Mo.
But Jeremy, get a guy that can get 17 and a half. He puts everybody in their proper position, right? You get a guy that has to command a double team. Now, 94 might actually do something, right? Now, Newton might actually do something, depending on which side Trey Hendrickson lines up on. The Commanders have not had that. Even with Chase Young, they didn't have a guy that commanded a double team, right? Like a legitimate double team on most, like the kind of coverage you have to give Myles Garrett. Like the Commanders haven't had that.
No.
So, yes, he won't. But you're talking about the coverage on the back end, right? Which most people are comfortable with Mikey and hopefully Lattimore with coming back from the injury, right? And adding the pieces that they added this year to make it a little bit more stout in the artist formerly known as number 25 being gone and things like that. Like the pass rush, the coverage can help the pass rush get home if it's that much more improved, right? So the onus doesn't have to be on him every single play, even though he's going to take that responsibility. And they're working unison with each other.
I mean, the double teams really help your linebackers out, right? Your Frankie Louvu's, your Bobby Wagner's, right? So when you got
8 sacks last year,
huh?
Frankie Louvu who had 8 sacks last year.
So when you got a guy who's getting the double team, that means you got backers who's free to roam and make tackles. So when you get in the dominant double team or dominant guy, Frankie can move. Now we saw that a little bit last year before Jonathan Allen got hurt. Right? Before Jonathan Allen got hurt, and then Jonathan Allen in pain was getting double teamed. That's when Louvu look how Louvu's season changed after Jonathan Allen went out. Louvu was all over the place when Allen was still moving and flowing, and so therefore that will help them out as well. So the double team mode is definitely important. George says this. George Neal says Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. He didn't have many sacks in college, but he has the potential to become a great pass rusher, especially with our coaching. We talk about, hey, everybody got great potential. I'm not trying to be funny, George. I'm not trying to be funny. Everybody has great potential. This team was, you got to realize, this team was one game away from the Super Bowl, right? With a bad defense. Terrible.
I don't say bad defense.
Mo, if Jahmyr Gibbs, if Ben Johnson keeps handing the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, Washington doesn't get there.
A bad run defense. We can't say they're a bad defense because they started low and they got to the middle of the pack.
A bad run defense. So this team
needs... but I do like George Neal's point because where we're drafting, that's the kind of guys you got to look at is somebody that is a diamond in the rough that you think this coaching staff can turn into a superstar. And you can't that's what happens at 29. When you find those kind of players, it's usually somebody that's just been missed or overlooked, or they were in a situation that wasn't as good at college, but they got talent, and you unlock them, and all of a sudden you got yourself a superstar. You can't find that at 29. It's very hard.
George and George.
Hey,
George and George. Listen, George and George.
Hey, we don't have a dominant defense.
George and George. If the guy doesn't get sacks in college, i.e. Oway that plays for the Ravens from Penn State. If a guy doesn't get sacks in college, he's not coming to the NFL and getting sacks. So you might as well spend that on a running back. Make it Trey Hendrickson. At least you're going to get touchdowns out of it, right? You have to get a guy. If you get a DN, he has to be somebody that has demonstrated that he can do this before. Because he has to come in here, he has to beat out these veterans, and he has to be better than them. you can't take no project at 29.
No, I mean that's fair. That's fair. I get where he's coming from, George Sanil. And again, it's like
I'm
the
not
thing
mad
is,
at
we have to
I'm not
remember
mad at the
too.
thought. The player's the problem. It could be another DN. It can't be that DN. If you don't get sacks in
that's fair
college, you
enough.
can't.
But that's fair enough.
I'll ask you guys this question, and I don't want to sound like a homer, and I'm on this team, this coaching staff got a lot out of players that we didn't think they would get a lot out of last year. The players that they brought in, I'm just thinking that they're thinking they're going to get a lot out of insert defensive end, right? Mm-hmm. Those players. So if the money is too much and they need to get something out of the DN, it's the DNs or the defense, it's on Joe Witt and his coaching staff to make this defense better. Not necessarily getting one player to make it better. The thing I
can say though, Glenn, at least I can say that Fowler has had double sack seasons prior to him coming here. He may not have had it coming in, but he had demonstrated he can get double figure sacks in the NFL prior to that. You see what I'm saying? So like there was something there. He's shown that before, whether it was in Jacksonville or LA. I forget what year it was. He had like 11 and a half sacks or something like that. But that's hard to replicate on a year-to-year basis. You know what I mean? Yes, players are long in the tooth. Like Demetric Weiss is like, I think Dietrich Weiss, it's like in year like 9.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's been in the league longer than Trey Hendrickson. And I'm not beating the Trey Hendrickson point because I think that's not going to happen. I think that's going to be hard to do. But like, you just got to get a guy that can play. So we're going to see if Adam Peters is really who they think he is in terms of like, he's going to need another draft, right? Like this is where he solidifies if he's that GM or if last year was just, he struck gold with Mikey. And because if we look back now, McGee didn't play, right? McGee didn't play much. So even though it was thought of as a good pickup at the time, McGee didn't play much. Newton didn't play well because of injury and other factors and all that kind of stuff. So they drafted a D tackle that was supposed to be a first-round draft pick at the top of the second round, and then the next year immediately signed a $15 million D tackle. Like, that's cause for concern because you know they're going to play the $22 million guy. Mm-hmm. So if you bring in somebody at $15 million, the money would say he has to play, right?
That's what I'm saying. The money say got to move.
So Adam Peters has to hit this draft. Like, this is the draft he has to win. This is the draft he has to win. Because Mikey was cool and hitting on Jaden Daniels covers a lot of woes, right? But Luke McCaffrey didn't do anything. McGee didn't do anything. And Newton was serviceable at best. Brandon Coleman, he hit on Brandon Coleman. Yep. Let me not forget Brandon Coleman. He hit on Brandon Coleman too.
He hit on Coleman. So here this. Before you get there, Deluxe says this, Mo. Washington was 12th in sacks last year. The problem was stopping the run. Drafted young
lost 10.5 sacks though, Deluxe. You lost 10.5 sacks, and the career high for anybody on your roster right now is 8 sacks. That's the point I'm trying to make, Deluxe. That
in the defense, you said it on the last show, right? We talked about it with 2 shows ago. Dante Fowler, he is a sack specialist, right?
That's what he does.
That's all he does. He doesn't do anything else. He finds the open gap and he just goes sack.
And what the Commanders did well last year was they played him in spots. He didn't have to play all game. That's part of the reason why he was hurt in other stops. Because when he was a first-round draft pick, he had to play majority of the time. He would get hurt. Or he wouldn't play well. Then he went to the Rams. They did some of the same kind of things. But he's never put together 2 consecutive years in the league that were worth anything. Almost always when he had double-figure sacks, he had half of the sacks the next year.
Mm.
No, yeah. I think that's right. But I mean, the point is, Deluxe's point about that this team needs to stop the run is well taken. And again,
they got to stop the run. I agree with Deluxe.
Again, that's where Mo's right about getting Hendrickson though, because not only do you get the production and the sacks, he will set the edge for you.
Yes.
He will set the edge for you 100%. And that is as much a priority as the sacks at this point, because God, we have to watch another damn game where somebody has 7 rushing touchdowns, like what happened with Philadelphia. I mean, I don't even want to think about it at this point. Something like that. I mean, that shadow of that game is over everything. Not that they lost, because that's not surprising. It's how they lost.
Hey, Paul says this: Trey would get us to the Super Bowl. Period. Paul is saying go all in, spend the money.
Yeah.
Trey's gonna get us to the Super Bowl.
You have a short window before you have to pay that guy that wears number 5, $300 million. Dak has already set the floor for Jaden Daniels' contract. Dak got 6 years. I mean, $60 million. I mean, he got $240 million over the course of a 4-year extension. By the time the TV deal, the salary cap goes up next year and the next 2 years, the Commanders try to get ahead of the contract and pay him at the end of year 3, right? So they can get 2 years. They can get the 2 years from his rookie deal tagged on to another 4 or 5, right? It's going to be he's going to be a $300 million player.
Or you franchise him. You franchise him.
You're not franchising him. You're not franchising him. It's not even going to. It's never going to get to that.
If you get Trey Hendrickson, you're going to have to franchise or let Terry McLaurin walk out the door.
Exactly.
Right.
So now what do they call that? Isn't that when you rob Peter to pay Paul?
You rob Peter to pay Paul.
That is exactly what that is.
So if this team goes all in with Trey Hendrickson, Terry McLaurin may not be a Commander his whole career.
And that's the problem.
You go, because when you get to that piece, you're gonna pay Jaden Daniels. Let's be honest. Jaden Daniels is gonna get paid.
And you're gonna pay him early before you have to pay him $80 million a year.
Right, $80 million a year.
Yeah, but that too.
Trey Henderson may mess up all the programming if you got to pay this guy $31.5 million, which is worth, and you don't trade. So again, the money value is going to make the big difference here on how this team looks in the future. They don't get him, they get a young guy. You can train now. You can sign Terry, you can sign Jaden, and you can sign another or somebody else later, or you can develop somebody. But if you get Trey Hendrickson or you get Trey, you're not going to have the money when it's come time to sign Terry. And now you may have a Super Bowl, but you may not go back the following year.
I definitely think 29 has to be a prime time DN. Like, it has to be a prime time DN. It has to be whoever the best available DN is. Like, I don't think
that's what Wole's been saying for a while. It's like best available defensive player. He didn't care what position, and there's a lot to that. Again, we do have to remind ourselves there is a decent chance this team's going to trade down for all those reasons to get more draft choices to try to help this team.
That was the initial thing that I mentioned. Like, it behooves them to trade. If they could trade down into the top 10 of the second round, you still get a first round talent. You get more picks. You can. There's a bunch of backs in this draft that have the speed element that people are looking for, right? We love Travion because he's from the area. It would be a great story. He's a great player, right? He's done what he needed to do, but there's a lot of ends that can play. You got the Jack Sawyers of the world. I'd rather shoot for a guy that has demonstrated his performance in college and then try to coach him up to be bigger or better than he was in college. Rather than Shamari Stewart. If you're a low sack guy already, you coming in and playing out of your mind is what, 8 sacks? Like, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. You got to get a guy that can play the run, that can get to the quarterback and really affect it. You got the Eagles have Mailata and Lane Johnson at tackle. Even the Giants have a premier tackle in Andrew Thomas.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like you got to deal with your division first.
Yep.
We didn't even talk about the other teams. You got to deal with your division first. I just don't know who the tackle is in Dallas. I know they had Tyron Smith for a long time. I can't think of the guy that they have right now, his name, but even he's not a scrub. Right? So you got to get around. You got to get around a lot of good guys in the NFC East. And you're going to need a good guy on the other side too.
Yeah.
And I'll add this. I don't think the 5th year the 5th year that you would get with a first rounder is as important for us in this draft as maybe other drafts because of what you guys have talked about. That when we get to the 5th year of these guys, we're going to be talking about paying Jaden. You've got the Terry McLaurin thing coming up as well.
You
Is the
got
5th
Brandon.
year option
You
going to
got
be
Brandon
that big a
Coleman.
deal for anybody we take in round 2, given who we're going to be paying big money to by that time anyway?
Right, because Brandon Coleman will come up at the same time as Jaden.
Mm-hmm.
So
He'll come up
there
the
you
year
go.
before.
Yeah,
That's
right.
true. The
So
same year, same offseason.
same offseason. Yeah, same offseason. So you got to look at that.
Mikey's going to be up same time.
Right. Coach says this. He says you got Gayton and Steele.
That's who it is. That's who's in Dallas.
Yeah, right. You also need my man George says this. We need a lot of picks.
We do.
But George, what you got? But people see, I tell Commanders fans they can't have it both ways, right? The acquisition of Debo came at the cost of a pick, so they bet that Debo will be better than any 5th round pick that they could have.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a pick. You bet that Laramie Tunsil is going to be better than any. What was it? The 3rd and
3rd and the 5th.
3rd and 5th this year, and the 2nd and the 4th next year, right?
Yeah.
So you're betting that Laramie Tunsil is going to be better than any 3rd round pick you got this year, and any 5th round pick you're going to have this year. 3rd round pick you're going to have this year. So they've already made those plays for essentially how I look at that is we were going to try to find a tackle in the 3rd round. So we got Laramie Tunsil because he's better.
Mm-hmm.
We were probably going to get a wide receiver in the 5th round, and we think Debo's better. So that's your draft pick right there. You can't have the player and all cry wolf about the pick.
No, but I mean, George is right in this sense that, we're still in the midst of this big roster turnover. We turned over a lot of it last year. We're turning over a fair amount of it again this year, which we knew that. We all knew that. That's what
bringing 33 players in one offseason and only have 4 of them have multi-year deals and think you weren't.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it works.
Exactly.
You had kids ball. You had guys ball out on 1-year deals.
Mm-hmm. And then guys going to want to get paid. Jeremy Chin left to go to Oakland because he probably got what he got.
3-year deal.
Double the amount that his replacement got paid.
Yeah. So Deluxe says there's 2 comments. Deluxe says I want to put up there real quick. And I think we talked about 5th years on it, executed by good teams. The player hits, the player is extended by the 4th year, which is definitely true. So you will see Jaden, Mikey, and those guys get extended by the 4th year.
But you still take the 5th year because you get him cheap for that 5th year. You get him cheaper than he hits the cap. Like I asked about that with a guy that I know that's played in the NFL a long time. Like a lot of teams still pick up that option after year 3 to secure you, and then the extension runs. That's what happened with Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
It's easier for quarterbacks because they're such a needy position. But you pick up the 5th year option after year 3, and then you tack on the years. That's why everybody was mad at Trevor Lawrence's contract, but Trevor Lawrence's contract is literally a 7-year contract.
Yeah.
When you dice the numbers up, right? And they pay him a little bit in year 4 and year 5. They pay him a little bit more in year 5 to make him up to par with whatever quarterbacks at that time make. And then they spread the rest in so that they can make other moves.
Mo, this is for you, man. I left it up here from Deluxe because you were talking about draft picks. Can you guarantee that Hendrickson will be better than a 1st rounder in 2 years?
Deluxe, can you go back and check the 29th? Check DNs that were picked in the last 3 picks of the last 5-6 drafts and tell me, are they better than Trey Hendrickson? That would be my question. That would be my rebuttal. I don't know a DN. The last DN that was picked that late in the draft in the 1st round that ended up being a really, really good player was Cam Jordan. And that was 2011.
He's a Hall of Famer.
And he's a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Like that's what you're running the risk of over there, right? Like I don't remember a guy at that late of the draft, that late in the wasn't Montez a 24th pick in the draft or something like that?
Yeah. Gotta look.
Montez was a high 20 pick or something like that.
He was late.
He was the 2nd first round of that year, right?
Yes.
And Montez is cool. He ain't great. He's cool. So it's just hard. Deluxe, like, do you want to try to push for the Super Bowl? Because after next year, you can't talk about this NFC Championship run again. Because that's gonna be water under the bridge by then. So if you don't do it by the time Jaden Daniels gets paid, it's going to be hard to field the team. Now you're going to run into the cap hell that most teams have. Like the 49ers just tried it, right? 49ers just tried it, and then they had to dismantle the whole team because now they got to pay Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
The Eagles are the only team I've seen get away with this foolishness, and I don't know what Howie Roseman got on the books, but I think what Howie Roseman did is he hit on a lot of key pieces on the defense, young players. They got Cooper DeJean in the second round, right? C.J. Gardner-Johnson they traded for. He was back and forth in Philly.
Well,
Quinyon Mitchell. Mitchell.
But Hurts also played on a cheap
Hurts
deal.
played on a rookie deal for 3 years, right? A second round rookie deal.
Second round rookie deal.
Second round rookie deal, probably worth $5 million in total.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if these dumb teams hadn't paid some of these quarterbacks that shouldn't have got this money, the money they did, we wouldn't be talking and we wouldn't be getting absolutely jammed up the you-know-what with Jaden Daniels in 3 years. Because, honestly, Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, all these guys that don't win crap in the playoffs getting all this money, and now we got someone who can do it in the playoffs, and we're going to have to pay him. Can't even
it started with Patrick Mahomes. It started with Mahomes when he got the $500 million.
But he was worth it because he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I don't begrudge him getting the money. It's the Cousins of the world. It's the Dak Prescotts. It's the Trevor Lawrences of the world. All these guys have got like one playoff winner, 0, or maybe 2, and then none of them is going to lead a team to the Super Bowl. Right. Never. It's not going to happen. And they're getting paid like they are. That's the problem.
Paul has a question. I want to know your answers. Hey, question. Who is the dominant player on our defense?
Dominant?
One day it might be Mikey, but it's nobody right now.
I'm about to say that Mikey's probably the best player. No. I'm not going to disrespect. Luvu is the best defensive player.
And then coach has this. And that's for you, Paul. Define dominant.
Yeah, Luvu's the best defensive player.
Luvu's the best defensive player, but if you're going to say who's going to be dominant one day, I feel like Mikey's ceiling is that high that we could say that about him.
Yeah, he'd be the lockdown corner.
I mean, we all knew it. We said it back in camp. Mikey was the best corner on this team then, and he was a rookie and he was first camp.
Yeah,
and that's proved itself out.
Y'all want to hear something? We was talking about Patrick Mahomes, right? Remember, Patrick Mahomes took all the years, right? And he put it across. Patrick Mahomes is the 14th highest paid quarterback in the league at $45 million per season.
It makes me want to cry, honestly.
The 14th.
Some of the people are ahead of him.
Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Tua, Jordan Love after one season when he got his contract. Dak Prescott, because Jerry Jones is a fool and he disrespected Dak the first time, and Dak ended up getting hurt and had to get franchise tag. Dak will never let him see the end of that.
Well,
Dak pillages Jerry Jones every chance he gets.
He does, but Jerry Jones should have let Dak play that contract out and traded him and start over. Dallas needed to blow everything up and start over.
Jerry Jones would never. Jerry Jones would never.
And that's why they're going to be what they are. That's why they're going to be what they are until hell won't have it. They needed to nuke that roster. It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true. So back to, we don't have that dominant player. Back to the topic at hand. Is Trey the dominant player that Washington has? And do you need that player this year? Or can you draft and Washington can still make a run at this thing?
Sensibly, you have to draft. Sensibly. If we're sensible. If we're sensible as prognosticators about what's going on, you draft and you coach and you try to maximize ability if you're being sensible.
So you back out, you Adam Peters, you back out of this trade conversation.
If the price tag is $31 million and another high leverage draft pick, but Then again, if you can get your running back in the first round, is there a second round DN that's going to be better than Trey Hendrickson? These are the questions you have to ask yourself.
It is. I mean, the question is, but the also question is, do you think you can, because of all the changes that you made in the offensive line, do you think it was more of the offensive line? We talked about Brian Robinson last week. Check out the episode if you missed it. If you made all these changes in the offensive line, do you faith in Brian Robinson to produce because the offensive line is better?
I don't have faith in Brian Robinson.
I'm not you. I'm talking
Neither
about. I'm talking about the organization. Does the organization have faith in Brian Robinson?
The organization should not have faith in Brian Robinson because Brian Robinson hasn't given them anything to be faithful to. If this organization was smart, they'll get the DN, and they will get, if there's a great running back there, the second round pick, if everything stays the same, get him and make him come in and battle to be the starter. Brian Robinson cannot handle all the carries. He's never been able to handle all the carries dating back to his 5 years in college. He had one great year after Najee left, and he ain't been that since. He ain't shown it in the NFL for a multitude of reasons. He had the unfortunate situation his rookie year. Eric Bieniemy was the excuse the third year. Last year, it was he's tiptoeing. Like, to the point where he has to get this grand hug from Dan Quinn in the Lions game to restore his confidence. Like, the writing's on the wall. He's playing on the last year of his rookie deal, right? He has the ball all the way out, and he just doesn't have the tools, unfortunately. He doesn't have the breakaway speed.
Hey, I'm going like deluxe. I feel like this, and I was on a Travion Henderson train, right? I like Travion. Known the kid for years. All right.
I don't think he's a first round pick.
I'm about to say that too. I don't think he's first round pick. But with this team right here, we talk about dominant defense. We talk about what they did on offense. This team, and I think somebody asked the question earlier, might have been Carl. Does this team have to go off? So we already said that Trey Hendrickson maybe too much. So if you at 29, George, you going offense or you going defense?
I'm going if we're staying at 29, I'm going defense. I like this kid, Nick Gordon, and I've seen him mocked a lot to the Commanders. I kind of like that. I ever since Wole said it, I think I've been in agreement with him that whoever the best defensive player is at 29 that's on the board, get him, because it doesn't matter. Linebacker, corner, safety, D tackle, DN, doesn't matter. We need them all.
Mo, where you going? 29.
29, you go defense. I think you can get your running back with that fourth round pick, especially the way that Adam Peters and them draft it, with their history in San Francisco, with the Jordan Masons, with the what was the guy before Jordan? Elijah Mitchell's, right? They've come and been serviceable. They haven't been every down backs, but like, you don't need an every down back because you have Brian Robinson to be at least the bell cow for this one more year. And that fourth round pick, you go get one of these fast guys that can come in and be dynamic. You also have Austin Eckler signed for another year. Jeremy McNichols re-signed, and then you have Deebo Samuels who can get some carries out the backfield. So they got some options. I'll go defense.
I will go defense as well. Guys in the chat, let me know what you go. You going offense or you going defense? The Trey Hendrickson thing has sailed, as I mentioned earlier when we first opened this conversation up a couple hours ago. Cincinnati has kind of taken the trade of Hendrickson off the table. But since we already had this bad boy, and we already had this bad boy locked and loaded, we had to finish okay and discuss it. But they're not saying just because they've taken some things off the table don't mean those things can come back on the table. And your players always will come in. George, you mentioned it. A lot of stuff may get done after the draft.
Listen, something's going to happen day one or day two of the draft, because teams are going to start to look at what's available on that day, what's not available, look at their board, and then somebody's going to get desperate. Somebody throws enough picks out there to Cincinnati, they'll take it, whether it was on the table or not. Because
I totally agree with that. 100%. I mean, the reason they've got to say that is that puts the price up. That's a negotiating tactic. I paid that no mind. Paid that no mind.
Draft day
said about, we're definitely not going to trade him.
We got
Myles Garrett definitely wasn't going to stay in Cleveland. We saw how long that lasted.
Yeah. 27 days. So here it is for the ladies. Gentlemen, last segment of the night. Answer, Mo. Do you take Hendrickson? Yes or no?
No.
George?
No.
I got to say no for the price tag because it's too much money, and I don't think Washington can't justify giving $30 million to somebody who doesn't throw the football. I'm sorry. He doesn't throw to catch it. I can't say that. So not to me. The answer's no.
And
Too
there's a
much.
lot of the running back position inquiry that everybody has. There's a lot of gems in this draft. There's a
Yes.
lot of gems in it. And if you look back to last year's history, the best running back out of last year's class was like a 4th or 5th rounder in Bucky Irving. Right? So
That's right.
history has shown
That is
itself that you can
correct.
get a running back in the middle rounds, and the Commanders they do have a middle round pick in what they got back for Tunsil, and I think that's the pick that should be used for the running back. And I think there'll be like Donovan Edwards is still available. Now he'll be available back at that round. He was the backup for Blake Corum in Michigan, number 7. He ran a 4.4 at the combine. He's 5'11", 220.
Oh wow. Okay.
If Washington's taking a running back in that section, Bashal Tootin.
That's Virginia Tech, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Didn't he run the fastest 40 at the combine?
Mm-hmm. That's what they need. So, hey, it's one of those things, man. Hey, Washington. I'm with George as we wrap this thing up. If they're going to do it, they should have did it before Larry Tunsil. But Tunsil is down. Tunsil's with us. So Trey Henderson will not be, unless they willing to house the farm on all this. Before we get out here, Mo, your thoughts on? I know this is all Burgundy and gold, everything, but I can't leave this program without asking you your thoughts on Russell Wilson coming to the New York Football Giants.
Oh yes, I want to hear this.
I mean, I think Russell Wilson brings a little bit more stability than the Giants have had since Eli Manning. I think that if anybody's being objective about the Giants, you look away from the record last year. The Giants went 3-14, right? They had the one offensive explosion at the end of the year. However, they lost 7 one-score games last year. Even to the Commanders, they only lost by 3 in the game where their field goal kicker got hurt on the first play of the game where Eckler took a touchdown to the house, but they called it back, right? Malik Neighbors, the stud rookie receiver, dropped a 4th and 2 to leave the game open for Jaden Daniels to go back to go score in the first game. The second game, they Commanders beat them by 5, but the Commanders had the ball and kneeled on it towards the end. So I wouldn't say that those games are completely out of hand, right? You're talking about 3 points, 5 points. That's one drive.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Giants get enough credit. I think people like to beat them up because of the whole Saquon debacle, and do so. But if you're going to objectively look at football and you're going to objectively look at the things that factor in, the Giants got a Russell Wilson. Even people thought he was mediocre last year, right? He averaged 225 yards a game when he played. He threw 16 touchdowns in the 11 games that he started. He only had 5 interceptions. If you project that over 17 games and he plays the 17, that's almost 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns and like 8 interceptions, right? That's a decent quarterback year. And you're talking about the weapons of, compared to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones took him to the playoffs throwing for 15 touchdowns.
Right.
And just about 3,000 yards. Dayball, and I think a lot of things went into Russell's play last year. I think Pittsburgh's line is not as good as people thought, right? The line was stagnant. What's his name? Arthur Smith and his play calling. They had to go a lot of too tight. A lot of people don't like the way he calls plays, right? We know that Pittsburgh likes to be conservative, right? 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And then their only primary receiver is George Pickens, who's the hothead, right? Like, so there's a lot of things you can look at to see why Russell. I don't think Russ is elite anymore. That's fine. But like, if you look at the Giants played a lot of games close and they lost them. And I think a quarterback changes that for them, because you don't need to condense the playbook for Daniel Jones anymore, because you have a veteran Super Bowl winner that's in there. So I think it improves the Giants along with the other moves that the Giants made this year. The Giants fortified their defense that people don't talk about. Javon Holland was the biggest safety name in the free agent market. He's been Pro Bowl type level player. He's there now, right? They got a good they got a decent corner that just needs opportunity to show that he's better than advertised. He's actually the guy that made Marshawn Lattimore available for the Commanders to have, because they trusted him to take care of the duties in Paulson Adebo, right? So you still got Kayvon Thibodeau coming back, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence to finish the season this year. He didn't finish the season last year, so it should be interesting. Like, they still got to gel, they still got to do all the things they got to do, and and prove it, right? Dayball is coaching for his job, so they're gonna pull out all the stops this year. The GM is coaching for his job, so they're investing money in different places. But Russell Wilson coming to the Giants gives them some stability at quarterback. And when you're in a lot of one-score games, the difference is the quarterback, as we saw with Jaden Daniels last year.
Yeah, it definitely is that. I just wanted to get your take on the, Russell Wilson thing. When I saw it, I'm like, ooh, you got African-American quarterbacks all in the NFC East.
All across
the NFC East. You got athletic quarterbacks all across the NFC East. The NFC East is going to be interesting this year. And we also know that they have not been a
repeat winner
in the NFC East in a long time. So Philadelphia need to look out. Hey, with George, man, take us home.
All right, folks. Thank you for listening to us. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, and all your other podcast platforms. Just search All Burgundy and Gold Errrrything. Also tweet us at ABGs_Errrrything with 3 R's, and hit us up on IG and TikTok. Same thing, ABG_Errrrything, 3 R's. And when you've done all that, if you haven't done it by now, do it today. Like and subscribe to All Burgundy Gold Errrrything on YouTube so we can get these algorithms up and get get better in terms of the searching. When you search for the Commanders on YouTube, you want us coming up first because this is your best place to get your talk and your information on the Commanders.
Hey, you've been listening to the All Burgundy Gold Errrrything, powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 1340 AM and 96.9 FM in Hopewell, Virginia. For ages, deuces. We're out.